Hello and welcome to GPTV on Tuesday the 22nd of March. My name's Philip Kingston.
And my name is Gary Peer, and yes, Philip, it is March. We just did a trial opener, and you've got the month wrong.
Well, do you know why I said it was May instead of March, Gary? Because we're here at the Real Estate Institute of Victoria in one of their boardrooms, and I feel like a naughty boy. I feel like I'm here being dragged before the principal.
Well, the last time you were here, I think we've got some footage of you being very cheeky, taking away the big gavel and being naughty. And we've got some footage on there now, and there you are, just doing the wrong thing again, like a naughty boy. And it took a few years for them to let us back in.
Have you noticed how they have not put us back in that boardroom?
No, they haven't.
Put us in the naughty boys boardroom.
Right.
This is probably the room that you go to when you're being dragged before the discipline committee of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria, of which I'm very proud to say, or I'm surprised to say actually, we've never been called before.
Not that we're admitting. Philip, let's talk a bit.
I think you have once.
No, I haven't been disciplined. I think I had a dispute with another agent, and we had a thing here.
You did have a dispute with another agent, and to the very best of my knowledge, Gary, you won.
We did.
You won that dispute.
We did win, Phil, but there's no point in harping on that because no one cares. People do care about what happened on the weekend, the Grand Prix weekend, Philip.
Viewers, before we talk about the Grand Prix weekend, this is going to be a long episode because we're going to be interviewing Enzo Raimondo, the president of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria.
Phil.
So just understand it's a really good episode, but it's going to be long. So maybe put us on pause now, go and make yourself a cup of tea, get some Tim Tams, settle into your comfy chair, put your slippers on, and let's get into it. Because Gary...
Yes, put the cat on your lap and give it a nice pat because we've got a big show ahead, Philip.
What a weekend we have just had.
Well, it's monstrous, Philip.
It was bigger than Ben-Hur.
Can we get the towers up?
Cast of thousands. Let's get those towers up.
There we go. For 23 out of 26 makes an 89% clearance rate against a very strong industry clearance rate, I don't mind saying, Philip. I think it was 74%.
Well, it was, Gary, but let's be clear. Not only was it a 74% clearance, which we always say is a very healthy market.
Very strong, healthy.
But the Melbourne market had 1,600 auctions.
It's a lot.
The second biggest weekend in the history of Melbourne auctions. And that's obviously because we are sandwiched between the Labor Day weekend last weekend and the Easter Bunny is coming to Melbourne next weekend. So that's why it was so big.
And the words of Meatloaf, Philip, you took the words right out of my mouth. Let's review some of our auctions, Phil. We could be here all day and make this an hour episode. We'll try not to. Let's just review quickly some of the auctions. You started Saturday in Albert Street, Philip. That was a very strong auction. Expectations there around 1.3 to 1.45 thereabouts. Reserve was somewhere at the top end.
Price is undisclosed, is that correct?
No, it's not, Philip. The price is disclosed as a $1,686,000 sale price. Very healthy.
Viewers, over the weekend, we had a number of auctions that sold for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I'll get to them
over the
if you let me.
Set the scene. I've got to tell you, viewers, I did 12 auctions on the weekend. We're not going to review all 12 of them, but I've got to tell you, I have never seen such an intensity in the market like this for years.
No wonder you don't know what month it is, Philip. You'd be exhausted
still
on Tuesday.
Gary.
Phil, I did an auction in Lantana Road. I was anything but exhausted, although I could have been forgiven for being exhausted. We were expecting somewhere up in that sort of mid to high nines at the end.
What did you get?
And the reserve was kind of in that, I think the reserve was $1 million, which probably would have been reviewed down into the range.
Come on,
around 950. Philip, we got $1,185,000. Joel Sir and Adam Josky, what a job.
You've got to go through every one of our 25.
No, I'm not, but I'm going to talk about Beauville Avenue, Murrumbina, because I came and saw you there. We love it over there in Murrumbina. Phil, what happened there?
Well, Gary, we went into that auction thinking we had a couple of buyers, but we didn't feel totally confident. We thought it was a gorgeous house.
We thought we'd get around 1.2, which was the actual reserve, Philip, on the day, and we sold it for $1,200,000.
3 strong bidders there, Gary.
And $81,000.
Yep.
So well done.
And a shout out to the vendor there. She is
a lovely lady, a delightful lady. She watches the show, Phil. She wouldn't miss it for anything.
Shout out to you, Michelle, because you were a delight to do business with, and we certainly wish you very good luck with your move. And an emotional experience, I would have thought, because she'd been in the house for many years.
She had been there a long time.
All her family up there. It was a lovely home, and a special thank you because we loved your house and we loved doing business with you.
Good job, Leo and Graham there. Phil, on Sunday there's an unsold property I want to talk about because I think it is value. It is 12 Crimea Street. The asking price is $1,890,000.
You said Saturday, didn't you?
Did I? Yeah. I thought I said Sunday.
Sunday morning, 10:30.
You don't know what month it is. I don't know what day it is. We're a pretty professional couple, aren't we?
Gary, if that's not sold by tonight, I'll be amazed.
Well, if it hasn't been sold by the time this goes to air, jump on it. 1890 is value for that house, Philip, and I'm going to talk about why. I'm going to talk about why in a minute. 15 Mitchell Street, Elsa.
You're going to go through every auction?
No, I've got 2 to go, Phil. Elsa was a strong auction, sold for $1,560,000. Some good competition. Did you have some fun there, Phil?
I did, Gary. Three bidders there. Some people get. Interestingly, funnily enough, that auction I think was that at 11:30 or 12:30? 12:30. And we had a lovely family there bidding for it.
Yes.
And they missed out. They were the underbidders.
Yes.
And what time was the auction in Attley Groves?
That was at like 1:30 or 2:30.
2:30, I think it was.
2:30. Yeah.
So this family went from a two-story house.
Yeah.
Two-story townhouse in Mitchell Street.
Yes.
The underbidders there. Yeah. They went to Attley Grove in East St Kilda.
I was standing with
for a single-story, very schmick 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, cool house.
Yeah.
And they were the underbidders there as well.
And is that a good story?
Well, it's just interesting for viewers to see.
Do you think that's interesting?
Buyers can bid on 2 completely different architectural types.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting.
Let's talk about 8183 Oron Road.
That was interesting?
No, I didn't, but that's okay. You did, so maybe someone out there does think it's interesting with you together.
Viewer, if you found that interesting, please send me an email, ideas@garypeer.com.au, and I'll give you a free lunch.
It was good, yeah.
So I'm going to coerce.
That's it. You're going to get a positive response no matter what. Phil, 183.
Free lunch at Las Chicas in Carlisle Street.
183
underneath the railway line bridge. Great cafe.
And you're telling me I'm making this long.
Go on.
183 Oron Road,
I want to
Philip.
give them a shout out because they run our coffee van, Gary.
They do a good job and people love it. Philip, 183 Oron Road. Well, I stand corrected, Philip, because I put the price range on that one around 1.2 to 1.3 because I thought, looking at some of the sales, I thought that, I knew there was a lot of interest. The reserve was 1.3, Philip, which was in the range.
Come on, Gary.
1.2 to 1.32.
Tell us the selling price.
There was 100.
And then let me get stuck into you.
There was 160.
Underquoting.
I didn't underquote. You know I didn't underquote
Gary,
because the reserve was in the range.
I believe you underquoted that property.
Don't be ridiculous.
Gary, 1.2 to 1.32 was his estimation.
And the vendor agreed with that. And I had some sales on evidence, Philip.
The reserve was 1.3.
It was cooler.
Within his range. So technically, viewers, and we're going to explore this next week.
No, don't
given
put
the
me
fact
on
that
trial
we're at the
for
Real Estate Institute of Victoria. But I don't know, you're an industry professional, Gary. 1.2 to 1.32, you put on this property. What did it sell for?
I'm going to talk to Enzo.
No, look at the camera. Tell me, what did it sell for?
The reserve was 1.3, Philip. It sold for $1,816,000. There was 116 bids, mate.
How long have you been in real estate, Gary?
Philip, let's move on to the next sale. 19 Marie Street, Philip.
See, you're happy to dish it out, but when it comes to actually answering directly into the camera how long you've been in real estate, you can't do it, can you?
Were you involved in Marie Street? Morris Street?
Yeah,
okay.
I was.
And the reserve there was $2 million.
Correct.
And what did you sell it for? You must have sold it for about $2 million, yeah? That would be right, because he's just given me a scathing attack of getting too good a price for my seller, which is really what it was.
We sold that for $2,600,000.
How much? And what did you appraise it at, Philip?
Okay, viewers, you'll notice there's a little bit of it's a bit testy here today. We love each other, and we don't believe in anything we're just saying here, but we're just setting this up to set the scene for the entrance for Enzo Raimondo to come and talk to us
about the
not
controversy,
this week, but next week about underquoting.
Yeah.
So
he's going to talk to us
when
today,
two industry veterans
get it wrong,
are getting prices way and above what we estimated, this market is like a roller coaster. Except that a roller coaster goes up and then it goes down. This is a market that's just going up. There's no down.
Marie Street sold for $2,600,000, way above expectations. And yes, we have been getting it wrong a few times, so I don't mind sharing that with the viewers. But at the end of the day, we can only put it out there. Auctions are designed to get premiums for sellers, and that's what we do well.
The market is running hot.
Very strong, Philip. Let's move on to Enzo Raimondo, shall we? Because we're lucky to have him on.
So that's a wrap of the weekend.
Our bits of GPTV.
Yeah, but let's just to go over it once more. Well done to the entire team at GPA.
Yes.
23 out of 26.
Yeah.
The 3 that we didn't sell, I think, will sell.
And a number of other big sales through the week, Philip, too. Some very big sales. We sold that big parcel of land.
Very excited.
In Seymour Road. We won't talk about the price, but that was sold. That was a groundbreaking and record-making sale.
Yep.
There has been some exciting stuff going on. The market is strong. No auctions this weekend, so have a good Friday and a safe Easter and Easter Monday, Easter weekend.
Let's cut over to our interview with Enzo.
Let's do it. So it is with great pleasure that we welcome Enzo Raimondo, the CEO of the REIV, to GPTV. Welcome, Enzo, and thank you for agreeing to be on. It's great to have you back here.
Well, hang on a second. Yeah. Is this really Enzo? Because if you have a look at last time Enzo came on, right. In fact, we'll flash up some footage there.
Yes.
Is this the new Enzo? Is this really Enzo? Or is this hipster Enzo.
Well, or the Breaking Bad Enzo.
Breaking Bad.
It's got a bit of Walter White about him now, you know.
Correct. So you were saying the REIV is just a front for an ice manufacturing operation.
Philip,
Actually, if you
say
think
that.
about it, with all the REIV members, he could be.
The goanna, Philip. Remember, they never knew who the goanna was, but it's a good image anyway. I think you look great, and I like it. And it is that sort of hipster look, isn't it, Phil, that you always talk about with those balaclava buyers, the Williamsburg types.
Yep.
But Enzo, you have been at the REIV for quite some time now.
16 years.
That's unbelievable. 16 years of tenure. And what have you seen change in that time?
Without a shadow of a doubt, the way the transaction is handled now has changed dramatically. The effect of technology on real estate transactions has enabled consumers, agents, buyers, sellers to access a whole lot of information that they wouldn't or couldn't get 10, 20 years ago. And I think it's made it better. They're better informed. They're more sophisticated in terms of what's going on in the marketplace, and which is what we want in this marketplace. We want people to have information that they can rely on and make decisions on. So technology has played a significant part in the change to real estate transactions. But more importantly, I think with that also comes a change from estate agents who want to elevate their customer service delivery. I think the service delivery from estate agents in particular in Victoria has risen in the last decade. It's been a very strong market, continues to be a strong market, but I think estate agents are much more professional today than what they were when I started 16 years ago. The advent of technology and its impact on the transaction and a whole lot of information that's available now. That's all added to make it a more positive and professional experience.
Now you were in South Australia before you were here, and you were there. How long were you? Did you hold court over the REISA?
Not long, not compared to here. So it was 5 years.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, 16 years.
So you've been doing this a while. You're starting to get the hang of it, much like us as real estate agents.
I'm just learning now. Yeah, I'm just I've finished my apprenticeship, and I'm just getting to knowing much more about it.
Can I just jump in here? You talked about the level of education and the quality of service that real estate agents are able to offer. I have a strong opinion on this, but I'm curious as to your opinion. Is the role of the estate agent still relevant in this technologically driven world? Is our role still relevant?
Are we needed?
Look, I think more than ever estate agents are needed. Will the transaction be the same as what it was 20 years ago? Look, I remember when I was a young man and I bought my first property, the estate agent drove me around and showed me properties and took me in, and if I wanted to know what was for sale, I went to the estate agent. So now that information, I mean, by the time someone comes to see you, when they're buying, I suspect they already know what they want, how much they want to pay, and where they want to live. A vendor has already done their research on what you're good at in terms of where you operate and what your specialties are. So that in itself is good, but I think there are lots of little sub-industries that are starting up now, like, Rate My Agent or Local Agent Finder, which are now impacting on the transaction and on the agent's ability to provide that full service, so that bits of the transaction are being handled by others. I don't know whether that's necessarily a good thing. I do know, though, that other than the very few transactions that occur over the internet, people need that interaction with an estate agent, with a person, the intermediary between the buyer and the seller, to negotiate and to make sure that there's the best outcome for both parties.
Do you think, I mean, it's interesting, one of the things that we think we will always be relevant for is a buyer wants to buy as cheaply as possible, a seller wants to sell for the most possible money.
Sure.
Both of them are very rarely objective about their issues. I can't see how the internet or technology will ever disintermediate the agent from being able to bring both parties together, because ultimately our job is to get the buyer up. Also for a vendor to be realistic about their opportunities. And I'm not sure how technology can disintermediate the agent. Can you see that ever happening?
I can see technology, yes, being put in place of an agent so that you can buy and transact. Well, you can do that now with most products and services. So why should real estate be exempt from that? I see that possibility is there. Whether people will avail themselves of that is a different matter, and I think for the reasons you've rightly said, that they won't. I don't think people will be comfortable handling a transaction purely without the human interaction of an estate agent. But look, that reminds me of Uber, and everybody talks about Uber, and in fact I used Uber yesterday coming back from the Grand Prix.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and a question I was asked when I did a presentation to a group of people, a person in the crowd asked me, said, do you think real estate will ever be disintermediated the way Uber has with the taxi industry? And it was a really good question, and I said to the person who asked, I said, I don't believe Uber disintermediated the taxi industry. I think taxi drivers disintermediated the taxi industry. And that's my message to the real estate profession. If you do not deliver a service that adds value, then yes, the chances are you're going to be disintermediated.
So we've got to be good enough to stay relevant, really.
You've got to be good at your customer service, you've got to be good at providing information to both sides of the transaction that can't find it on the internet, so that you are adding value, and you've got to be the expert of the market in the area that you operate in.
So you're really saying that with all of this digital changing, it's just going to force us to be better?
Absolutely.
Which can't be a bad thing.
But
I think
gentlemen,
it's a good thing.
if you look back 20 years ago, there was the rise of, or 15 years ago, the rise of self-sell agents. That was a big push for that in the marketplace.
Yeah, I remember.
And it didn't really go anywhere.
And reps, I think they were called.
But there was a number of them. They came in, right. And someone tried it in New Zealand, but it never really took off. That people could sort of sell themselves, where they had the tools, they had the opportunity. Maybe they didn't have as much technology as now, but the agent was relevant even at that time.
A lot of people who went down that path, I think figures that we had at the time showed that more than 50% failed, so they ended up engaging an estate agent. Yeah. Look, there'll always be 1 or 2% of the population that will try and sell their own home, and good luck to them. Yeah. But for the majority of people who are time poor, they need an expert, they need a professional to handle the sale or the purchase of real estate. And so I think, yes, there's a part for the estate agent. What it will be in 5 to 10 years, who knows?
Now, the REIV has all the data, don't we? We get all the data here.
Yep.
So for buyers that want to be informed, how do they get all the data? How do they get the
information?
They
go to reiv.com.au. We have lots of information on prices, on our website, medium prices, suburb prices. We've got overlaid with heat maps of schools and different zoning. We get the auction results out on a Saturday night to I think 250,000 people here in Melbourne.
How do people get that? If I'm a consumer, how do I get the auction results on a Saturday night from the REIV?
Just log into REIV and go to auction results tab and just put in your email address, and we'll send them to you Saturday night. You can do it from REIV, or you can do it from realestateview.com.au. Okay. Both of them send out the auction results, and we look by 5 o'clock on a Saturday night, we've got 95% of the results of that day. So and you'll get them by 7:30. So that's pretty good.
And of course, people know, realestate.com's a very big firm, domain.com's a very big firm, but Real Estate View, is there anything that's not on Real Estate View? Just about all the properties are listed there as well, aren't they, that are for sale?
Yeah. Look, we've got about 90% of the properties on Real Estate View that are on both those two websites. Yep. We're probably a bit weaker in the regional areas, but certainly Metro, we're very strong in terms of the content. Yep. So content-wise, very similar. Yep. Yes, they are very big and they've got lots of marketing dollars that we don't have, but we're number 3 in Australia, and our plan is to keep growing and growing.
And let's get back to the old discussion about stamp duty. Anything can be done there. We're still the highest in Australia.
You're not going to bring this old chestnut up again, are you, Gary?
Why not?
The stamp duty is good. It goes to the government, and the government will spend it
wisely and astutely, Philip. But we are the highest in Australia. Any chance of that changing?
Yeah, look, there are 50% stamp duty discount for first home buyers in Victoria.
Yep.
And that applies to new construction and established, which...
Up to a price threshold?
Yeah, I think it is. And I don't know what that threshold is at the moment. How much is it?
I think it's 600,000.
Yeah. Look, it might be that we may have to go back to the government and ask them to increase that threshold. I think it's look, I don't think they're going to cut stamp duty. I'm not making any excuses for the government or for the Treasurer. It's a significant revenue stream for the government in terms of what they're able to do in terms of investment in Victoria, but it is expensive and it is a disincentive for relocation, so it should be looked at. I don't know what the answer is, because if if you go to government and say cut stamp duty, they want to know how they're going to replace it.
Well, let's talk about then negative gearing, because that's the next hot thing on the table. What happens there if that changes, do we think?
Negative gearing, and there's been a range of eminently qualified economists around Australia saying it shouldn't be touched, and some that saying it should be removed, and to the ordinary person out there you'd be confused as to what the hell's going on. But my view is that negative gearing should stay. There's no reason why negative gearing on property should be removed while investors can take advantage of negative gearing on every other investment. So it's got to be equitable, it's got to be treated exactly the same way. Many years ago, every state government and every federal government for the last 20 years has said that they do not want to invest in construction of social welfare housing. They'll leave that up to the private sector. Now, if the private sector has to pick up and provide rental accommodation for those people who want to rent, then they need some incentives to do that. And you remove those incentives, I believe you're going to have what happened when Paul Keating was around, when he removed it, and you'll see rental properties, a shortage of rental properties on the market, rents will go up. It won't be any good for anyone. So I don't know. I think the people who are saying get rid of negative gearing are seeing this as a one-dimensional argument. They're saying that, it's only the rich that benefit. The figures that have come out said, well, it's actually more like normal people who have got one or two properties that they've invested in, not only for the rental market, but also for their own future savings. So, yeah, it shouldn't be touched. I remember asking both Tony Abbott when he was Prime Minister, and Malcolm Turnbull and Christopher Pyne only recently, and all three of them said that the government they had no intention of touching negative gearing. So hopefully that happened.
Well, they've all said that, then it's guaranteed.
You can trust a politician.
Of course.
You would think without question that rents have to rise, because if negative gearing is abolished, fewer people buy investment properties, therefore there are less properties available for the rental pool, therefore rents go up, therefore inflation goes up. Yeah. So for those economists that can't see that, I would love for somebody to explain how that simple law of demand and supply doesn't work.
And for us veterans of the game, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where it was capital gains free, or when you made a gain on an investment. Now we're paying tax on investment, so the government picks that up as well. So interesting. Now, overseas buyers, one other thing to talk about very quickly. You know, there's been some changes made. Do we think that's going to have an impact and is having an impact?
The only anecdotal evidence or comments that I have was late last year when it was announced and when it came in, where there was an additional stamp duty in Victoria for foreign investors, the FIRB changes. I was told that had slowed down some of the market, but given what's happened in the first quarter of this year, it doesn't look like it's slowed down too much. The market's still very strong.
What is going on with the market? I mean, we've just come off a weekend of 20. We've had 23 out of 26, I think it was, Philip.
23 out of 25.
23 out of 25. Yeah. It was very strong. No, it was 23 out of 26. You're wrong.
Well, that's even higher than what the 76 was the clearance rate. So what do you got? 90.
Just for the record, Enzo, the team at Gary Piran Associates often, in fact, every week outperform the general marketplace.
Well,
Thank you.
Well, we reportedly so, because when it doesn't, we just don't report it.
So, okay, good.
It's very rare that happens. But what is going on with the market? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is it everywhere, or is it just at Gary Piran Associates?
No, look, I think the market's quite strong in parts of Melbourne. Most of the metropolitan and middle suburbs of Melbourne are very strong. I actually thought it was going to slow down this first quarter, but we haven't seen evidence of that in the data that we've received.
Can I just ask you, because the auction technique is really just a technique of selling in the inner suburbs, really, right. The inner to the middle ring.
Represents 25% of all sales.
Actually went up last year. Yeah. Do you know that last year was the highest number of auctions ever since we started?
I stand corrected.
We had over 40,000 auctions on a transaction volume of 120,000. So it's about 30%.
Yeah.
So
it was down to about 20% at one stage.
If we talk about the other 70%, that's the other 70% of sales are generally in the outer suburbs, where the great majority of Melburnians live, because the great majority of Melburnians don't live in the inner suburbs. What's going on in the market in the outer suburbs, and what's going on in Cranbourne and Melton and those other suburbs? Has the market gone up strongly there?
Most of the suburbs the outer suburbs, Cranbourne, Pakenham, etc., the growth suburbs, Melton, they experienced double-digit growth last year. So even those areas that are at the median or below are showing considerable price increase.
And I saw we were just having a look at the website before, the REIV website. The median house price in Melbourne now is $718,000.
It's 718. That's based on our collection, and our collection, I suppose, to be fair, is probably skewed more heavily on inner and middle. It's probably under that in the outer areas. It's probably somewhere between 5 and 6.
Okay, so you're saying that right across general Melbourne at 718, but if we go out to the growth suburbs, you can still buy a decent house in those suburbs for what, 550, 600, 650?
Absolutely, and under that, depending on how far out you go, you can buy a relatively new property with 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and 450, 500,000.
It is difficult for young people starting out, isn't it? Really, when you think. I mean, we're in a very privileged marketplace. We're selling properties for 1, 2, 3 million, and some of the smaller properties too. But if you're starting out today, as a young couple, it's very difficult, isn't it? Really.
It is, and there's a measure used that the times how many was it the multiple of your annual salary.
Correct.
Now I remember in 1980 when I bought my family home, it was 3.5 times. I think it cost me all of 45 grand in those days. And if a young person now wants to buy something 500,000 or 600,000, which is not a lot of money for a property in Melbourne today, that's significantly. You need to be on. If you're on 100,000, that's 6 or 7 times salary. So it is much more expensive.
And you've got to be on 100,000.
Exactly.
We talk about $100,000 as being a normal salary. The reality is, I think the median salary in Australia, or the average salary, is $61,000.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, you've just come from the Grand Prix. I hear that, and you think about Melbourne, and it's voted the most livable city in the world. So people say, "Oh, when are prices going to come back?" But everyone wants to be here, so why should it come back? Why will it come back, really,
Did you go to the Grand Prix, Enzo?
Yeah, I went to the Grand Prix.
Do you know what? Does anybody in Melbourne care about the Grand Prix?
There's a lot of people there, so they probably did.
What, do you think they all just got there by mistake? Walking around the lake and they found a racing car?
There's a lot of people that come from interstate, right? So let's say there's 100,000 people at the Grand Prix.
Are you living in a bubble or something?
50,000 people from interstate come. So that's 50,000 people in Melbourne out of a population of 4
all
million.
Over the world, it's broadcast. You're joking,
to see it. But I'm talking about Australia. Does anybody care?
Yes, Enzo cares.
So I got an invitation, I went.
We're having the Grand Prix for Enzo.
What? Is Enzo not worth having the Grand Prix for?
I went to the first one in Adelaide in 1986 because I come from Adelaide, and I thought that was really good in Adelaide. I think the Melbourne one is good, but I think the Adelaide one was better. But anyway.
We might send it to Sydney next. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I heard on the news something about Bernie Ecclestone thinking that Sydney might be a good spot for it.
With the greatest of respect to Ron Walker, who is an eminent Australian and certainly an eminent Melburnian, I don't care if we lose it. In fact, it'll make our auctions in March so much easier, because getting around that whole St Kilda area, it's a nightmare.
But
what
you know what?
thinking,
but it's one of those events that makes Melbourne a great town. That's what I'm saying, Philip. We have all these things on. We've got people getting smashed up on Moomba. That's entertainment.
Here's my point. If only 50,000 people in Melbourne go to the Grand Prix, we're having this circus for 50,000 people out of 4 million. It's really
probably ridiculous. 1 billion viewers around the world, which puts Melbourne on the map.
That's what we're saying.
That's the point, isn't it?
That is the point, Philip. I'm glad you finally plugged in. Took a while.
Okay, well, this is an education.
We've got the tennis, we've got the Grand Prix, we've got Moomba, we've got Kings of Moomba, Queens of Moomba, we've got the Melbourne Cup. I mean, we've got everything here. We've got the poker tournament, a crown. I mean, what more do you want?
That's it.
It's all happening. Now, let me just ask you one more question, or let me just put to you. We didn't know you'd be prepared to come on because the Reai Awards, we've just had them.
Yes.
And we're talking about now Western Australia cleaning up. And we represent a Victorian 4 categories, and we didn't know if you'd even agree to speak with us, because we came here sort of a bit shameful that we didn't take home any awards for Victoria. We represented our state in 4 categories. We're the most
four categories,
the most selected agent in Victoria.
And when I looked in a non-biased, in a very objective sense at our nomination for those 4 categories, we should have stormed home in every one of those categories.
Easily.
These people from Western Australia, I mean, what have they got in Western Australia? They've got a few open-cut mines.
They have.
Yes. What have they got? They've got great whites that take tourists
they've got
off
something
the beach.
else too.
What else have
They've
they got?
Gina Reinhardt, who sponsored the event. Is that true?
I don't know if she sponsored it.
I thought so. Well, you know that Gina and I are actually personal friends.
Oh, I know. There's a photo of you on the screen there.
To Gina, you know, next time, remember we are in the awards. But
so what's going on? How could we miss out?
Is the whole thing rigged?
No, I was sitting there hoping to hear some Victorians being announced as winners, and only one, I think, out of all the awards came to Victoria. So I was surprised, and in fact, I was on stage when I announced that category, and it happened to be a Victorian. The first thing I said, well, I can tell you it's not a Western Australian, which was good.
So I've got a bit of a theory on these awards anyway, and so look, Gary's very pro going into the awards. I think unless you win them, they're a complete and utter waste of time.
So you want to be guaranteed the win before you even enter?
Well, pretty much.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I mean, it's not like we're not deserving, Enzo.
No, of course not.
But I've got to tell you my biggest disappointment. This is why I said to Gary last year, I just don't want to go in it.
Right.
Because if we win in Victoria, we go on to the Nationals.
Yep.
Right?
The Nationals.
And last year, we did go to the Nationals in Tasmania.
And you won?
Where we did win.
Wasn't last year, Phil?
But I've got to tell you, the award that we were given was, can I say this on camera, it was a piece of shit.
No, you can't say that.
It was terrible, and I'm going to show.
What do you mean, the actual trophy?
The trophy.
Yeah, it was a little
trophy. It was like it was a recycled piece of timber with a little brass plaque.
I mean, the REIV trophy is a beautiful, proud trophy. It looks like an Oscar.
Yeah.
This was like a biscuit. It was like a wooden.
It was probably a piece of Tasmanian oak or Huon pine about 1,000 years old.
Yeah, they cut down a 1,000-year-old tree for the REIV. Yeah. Anyway,
I think you should enter, and if you don't win, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You've entered, and you were good enough to win in Victoria.
So you go. Winners are grinners, Enzo, and losers go home alone.
Well, the funny thing was, Phil, that I've got a mate who's in Perth, a very successful agent, and he actually won. His company won one of the awards, and he says the greatest compliment he gets is that we're the most Victorian-like real estate agency because they look to us as the leading estate agency.
Would it be fair on that? Because we've got to wrap this up, Gary. This has been going a long time.
Yeah, it has.
Not that you're not fascinating, Enzo, but
you think he has got better things to do.
Would it be fair to say that, and I've been right round the nation looking at other real estate agencies, that Victoria does have the most professional real estate agents in Australia?
In my experience of going around Australia in the last 25 years, I'd have to say yes, they do. Yep. And we have, and I think, I'm not sure whether this counts as any way towards it, but Victorian agencies, there are more independently owned, boutiques, like yourselves, Gary Peer, than the big national franchises. They're very strong in Queensland, New South Wales in particular, but Victoria seems to have, and from our membership, I think just under 70% of our memberships of REIV member offices are independent offices. So I think the fact that people actually trade under their own names or their own independent banner.
Put your name out there, you've got to do something.
Exactly.
So with the greatest of respect to the big franchise names, and we can mention a few of them. So we don't. We can talk about Ray White and LJ Hooker. No, they're just big brand names.
They're big national brands.
One of the things about those big brand names is that you do get a certain just generic a look and feel whether you're in Perth or whether you're in Melbourne. And I think that these boutique brands like us are
pushing for innovation, Phil.
Correct,
They're pushing for innovation.
You're pushing the boundaries.
We can respond
pushing the boundaries.
Pushing the boundaries, particularly in this show today.
Now, we're going to be back with Enzo. We thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
We're going to be back to talk about the new laws because these new laws that revolve around quote prices, etc., are very interesting. So we're going to be back next week to talk about that.
And we're going to have Enzo back next week to explain them because goodness knows neither Gary or I have any understanding of them. So Enzo, once again, you're always great. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Enzo. Thanks for being
Gary.
on board.
Thanks, Phil.
And it's certainly been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Enzo.